My name is Renee Hoffman. I'm 70 years old, and 3 days after my daughter-in-law redecorated my house, the locksmith rang my doorbell. He was young, 30 maybe. Work boots, clipboard, a look on his face like he was carrying something too heavy to hold. "Mrs. Hoffman," he said, "I wasn't supposed to tell you this, but she asked me to change every lock and hand her the only keys." I stood on my own porch holding keys that no longer worked. Keys I had carried for 26 years since my husband Frank cut them at the hardware store on Maple Street and pressed them warm into my hand. 6 years. She had been building toward this for 6 years. What I found on the security cameras that night made me sit very still for a very long time. But what happened 6 days later in a room full of 8 people, including the woman who told my doctor I was losing my mind, that part still makes me sit up straighter when I think about it. This is that story. Welcome back to Alpha Mom Stories, the channel where mothers over 50 finally tell the stories the world tried to silence. If you're new here, every story is about a quiet woman who held every card. Drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated and subscribe so you don't miss the ending. Frank Hoffman was a police detective for 30 years. Burglary, fraud, domestic disturbance, he worked them all. Retired at 64, died at 68. Heart attack in the driveway on a Tuesday morning. One hand on the card door, the other holding his travel mug. Quick, no goodbye, no last sentence I could carry around afterward and pretend was enough. He built our house. Not hired it out, built. Hands on the lumber, sweat through 3 shirts built. A ranch 1-story, 3 bedrooms, wraparound porch. He poured the foundation on a Saturday in April and finished the roof 12 weekends later. I brought him lemonade and held the level and told him the porch was crooked. He said that was character. We paid off the mortgage in 14 years. Frank called it the happiest check he ever wrote. The kitchen was his proudest room. He chose the cabinets, laid the tile, and mixed the wall paint himself. A sage green he spent 3 tries getting right. He'd stand back and tilt his head at the wall like was a suspect lineup. "That's the one," he said in the 3rd batch. "That's the color of home." I spent my career down the hall from men like Frank, family court mediator, 32 years. I sat between parents who wanted to tear each other apart and help them find the 1 square inch of ground they could both stand on. Custody battles, restraining orders, guardianship hearings. I knew every pattern, every excuse, every lie dressed up as love. Frank built things, I filed things. Between us, we had a house, a garden, and 34 years of not needing to fill silence with noise. Then Frank died. The silence stayed, but it changed shape. Garrett is my only child. 44 now, HVAC technician. Installs and repairs heating systems in commercial buildings. Good with his hands like Frank. Quiet like Frank. Terrible at conflict unlike either of us. When Frank died, something in Garrett went sideways. He stopped calling on Sundays, stopped dropping by on his way home from jobs. He didn't cry at the funeral, and he didn't cry after. And I knew what that meant because I'd seen it in my courtroom for 3 decades. A man pushing grief into a locked room and standing in front of the door. He married Paige 2 years after Frank passed. Paige Kessler, 39, dental office manager, organized, efficient. The kind of woman who color codes her spice rack and arrives 15 minutes early to everything. I liked Paige for the first 18 months. She remembered my birthday. She organized Garrett's tax returns. She brought a casserole to every holiday and never forgot which Tupperware was mine. Then something shifted. Paige started answering Garrett's phone. He's in the shower. He's napping. "He'll call you back, Renee." He rarely called back. Family dinners changed. Paige steered the conversation. Garrett sat beside her, nodding, eating, looking at his plate. When I asked him a direct question, he'd glance at her before answering. I noticed. In my line of work, you notice when someone starts managing another person's access. You notice when a wife begins speaking for a husband who used to speak fine. You notice because you've seen it 400 times from the mediation chair. And it always means the same thing. Someone is building a wall brick by brick, and they're using the people you love as mortar. Year 1. Paige offered to sort my mail, said it would save me the trip to the mailbox in winter. She smiled when she said it. I said yes because I was watching. In family court, I learned that acting too early means insufficient evidence. You wait. You document. You let the pattern declare itself. So I let Paige sort my mail, and I noted which envelopes stopped arriving. Year 2. Visits dropped from monthly to holidays only. Paige was always present. I was never alone with Garrett. When I suggested lunch, just the two of us, Paige would say, "Oh, let me check our calendar." And the lunch would evaporate into scheduling conflicts that never resolved. I recognized the architecture. Phase 1, control the channels. Phase 2, control the narrative. I had typed these exact words into mediator reports 412 times across 32 years. Now I was living inside one. I started a journal, not a financial ledger, a factual log. Date observation evidence. Tuesday, March 14th, called Garrett at 6 p.m. Paige answered, said he was sleeping. His truck was parked at the bowling alley. I drove past at 6:15. Friday, April 7th. Paige told Aunt Linda, I forgot to turn off the stove. I did not cook that day. Noted. Saturday, May 20th. Birthday card from cousin Marjorie never arrived. Marjorie confirmed she mailed it April 28th. Noted. Each entry was one line. Date fact source. The same format I'd used in 7,000 mediator files. I didn't confront Paige. I didn't confront Garrett. I wrote it down, closed the notebook, and went back to my crossword. Patience is not passivity. Patience is counting. Frank installed 6 security cameras the year before he died. Dome-style paint matched to the walls and ceiling. Nearly invisible unless you knew where to look. He mounted them himself on a Saturday, drilling into the drywall with the same concentration he brought to suspect interviews. Old habit, he said when I asked. 30 years on the force, you learn that what people do when they think nobody's watching is who they really are. He chose the positions carefully. Front door, back door, kitchen, living room, hallway, garage, cloud-backed storage, footage uploaded automatically, saved for 90 days. Rolling deletion. He showed me how to access it on his laptop, wrote the password on a sticky note, and stuck it inside the medicine cabinet. Just making sure the house is watching, he said. He called the cameras his nightlights. After Frank died, the subscription bill came. $9.99 a month. Some widows keep the voicemail greeting. Some keep a shirt that still smells right. I kept the cameras. I paid the $9.99 and I never told anyone. Paige knew about the cameras. The old visible ones from the previous system, the ones Frank removed when he installed the new set. She'd seen the brackets on the walls. She assumed the cameras died with Frank. She never asked. I never corrected her. At night, if I walked through the house in the dark, I could see the tiny red lights, one blink every 3 seconds, 6 dots steady and silent, scattered through the rooms like Frank's pulse still echoing through the walls. Those cameras would save everything, but not in the way Frank intended. Year 3. Paige expanded the campaign. She called Aunt Linda twice a month with updates. She told cousin Marjorie I couldn't drive safely anymore. She told Garrett's coworker Dave that I'd gotten lost walking home from the grocery store, a store 3 blocks away, that I'd walked to every Thursday for 20 years. Year 4. Paige accompanied Garrett to my annual physical. I didn't invite her. She showed up in the waiting room, stood when the nurse called my name, and walked into the exam room like she belonged there. Dr. Pham looked at me. I said nothing. Paige spoke for 11 minutes. She told him I forgot to eat, that I wandered the house at night, that I left the stove on at least twice a week. Dr. Pham made notes. I watched him write, and I counted the lies 7 and 11 minutes. I didn't know yet what he'd written in my chart. I would find out later. It would make my hands shake, and I am not a woman whose hands shake. My car keys went missing for the first time that November. I keep them on the hook by the front door. Have for 26 years. Same hook Frank screwed into the wall the week we moved in. I found them in the coat closet, buried in a pocket of a jacket I hadn't worn in months. I stood in the hallway holding those keys, and I thought about all the cases I'd mediated where an elderly person said, I know I didn't put them there, and how often nobody believed them. Year 5, the money moved. $18,000 withdrawn from the joint emergency account I shared with Garrett. Paige told him it was for renovations. Garrett signed. I did not authorize. Journal entry. Friday, November 8th, $18,000 withdrawn. Garrett signed. I did not authorize. Phase 3 was coming. Physical control. I just didn't know the date yet. I visited my sister Rita in Milwaukee for 5 days. When I came home, I opened the front door and stepped into someone else's house. The kitchen wall was gray. Not a warm gray. Not a slate. A flat, lifeless gray that swallowed the light and gave nothing back. The color Frank had mixed himself 3 tries 26 years on that wall was gone. Buried under something called modern slate from a can I found later in the recycling. The family photos were down. Every frame, every face. In their place, geometric prints from Home Goods and a wooden sign that said, "Live, Laugh, Love" in cursive. Frank's reading chair. The brown leather recliner where he read the paper every morning and fell asleep every Sunday was gone. In its place, a white sectional that smelled like showroom plastic. The kitchen had been completely reorganized. Mugs moved from upper cabinets to lower, spices relocated from the counter to the pantry. My pill organizer moved from the nightstand to a bathroom cabinet across the hall. I couldn't find my own coffee mugs. Paige stood in the doorway, smiling, hands clasped. We freshened things up while you were away. Don't you love it? I didn't answer. I walked to the kitchen, touched the gray wall with my palm. Underneath that paint, somewhere Frank's green was still there. Paint doesn't disappear. It just gets buried. That night, I heard Paige on the phone with Garrett. She didn't know I was in the hallway. She doesn't even recognize her own kitchen anymore. I stood in the dark, listening, counting. I have cried 4 times in my adult life. This was not one of them. This was something harder than crying. This was arithmetic. 3 days after the redecoration, Tuesday, 2:14 in the afternoon. The doorbell rang. A young man on the porch, 30, maybe 31. Work boots. Navy polo with a locksmith company logo clipboard in his left hand. He looked uncomfortable in a way that had nothing to do with the heat. Mrs. Hoffman, I have a work order to change the locks on your front door, back door, garage entry, and side gate. 4 locks total. New keys go to the person who placed the order. Who placed the order? Your daughter-in-law, Paige Hoffman. I held the doorframe not because I was unsteady, because I was doing the math. Redecoration lock change, next step filing. Ma'am, you're Mrs. Renee Hoffman. You worked at the family courthouse on Elm Street 32 years. My grandmother was Rosa Vasquez. I stopped doing math. Rosa Vasquez. Case number 4217. I remembered because Rosa brought empanadas to every session, and the file smelled like cumin for 6 months. Her daughter had lost parental rights substance abuse. Rosa fought for custody of her grandson. I mediated the case. Rosa won. That grandson was standing on my porch. Eddie, I said. Yes, ma'am. You grew up tall. His eyes were wet. My grandmother always said, if you ever meet Renee Hoffman, you thank her. I'm thanking you now. He looked at the work order in his hand, then at me, Mrs. Hoffman. I'm not changing your locks. He tore the work order in half, folded the pieces into his pocket. I'll tell her the homeowner refused service. That's all she needs to know. He turned to leave, then stopped. And Mrs. Hoffman, whatever she's doing, be careful. She paid extra for a rush job. After Eddie's truck pulled away, I locked the front door. With my keys, my locks on my porch, and walked to the bedroom closet. Frank's laptop sat on the top shelf between a box of his case files and the quilt his mother made. I hadn't opened it in 5 months. The password was still on the sticky note inside the medicine cabinet right where he'd left it. I carried the laptop to the kitchen counter, plugged it in, opened the camera app. 6 green dots, all active, all recording. 4 years of footage auto-uploaded, rolling 90-day windows. Frank's subscription, my credit card, $9.99 a month, never once missed. I sat on the only stool Paige hadn't replaced, opened the search by date, scrolled back to the renovation week, the 5 days I was in Milwaukee. 5 days of footage, 6 cameras, every room time-stamped audio included. I poured a cup of coffee, set it on the counter, and pressed play. The first frame was Paige's car pulling into my driveway at 8:47 a.m., the morning after I left for Milwaukee. She carried 2 gallons of paint in one hand and a clipboard in the other. The second frame was Diane. Paige's mother, 64 years old, silver-haired, carrying a roller tray and a garbage bag. They entered through the front door. Paige had a key Garrett's spare given without my knowledge. Paige walked through every room with her clipboard checking items off. I watched the timestamp advance. 8:47 a.m. 8:52, 9, 19:14. The coffee went cold. I didn't notice. What I saw in the first 20 minutes made me set down the mug and call a number I hadn't dialed in 4 years. The kitchen camera caught everything. Paige positioned herself at the counter, clipboard flat, pen uncapped. Diane stood beside her like a surgeon's assistant ready. Kitchen wall paint, living room photos down, bedroom chair out, bathroom medicine cabinet swap. Item by item, room by room. They moved through my house like movers with a manifest, efficient, unhurried. Organized the way Paige organized everything by spreadsheet logic and zero sentiment. At 9:22 a.m., Diane opened a paint can, stirred it, loaded the roller, and started painting over the kitchen wall. I watched Frank, sage green, disappear on a 6-inch laptop screen, sitting in the kitchen where it happened. I watched the color he'd mixed himself 3 tries, 26 years, vanish under flat gray in clean parallel strokes. I have reviewed evidence footage for 32 years, bank fraud transcripts, custody violation recordings, restraining order surveillance. I've sat in windowless conference rooms and watched hours of human beings at their worst without flinching. But watching someone paint over your dead husband's kitchen wall while standing 3 feet from the spot where he proposed to you, that was new. Then the audio. Diane, roller in hand, paint on her forearms. Did you call the guardianship attorney yet? Paige checking off kitchen wall on her clipboard. After the locks, 1 step at a time. Guardianship attorney. 1 step at a time on the recording. Time-stamped in my house. I pressed pause, rewound, played it again. Listen to Diane say guardianship attorney 3 times, because in my career I learned you always confirm what you think you heard. I heard it 3 times. Clear as the gray paint drying on my wall. I scrolled further back past the renovation week into the months before. The kitchen camera. November 14th, 2:17 a.m. Paige alone in my kitchen in the dark, except for the under-cabinet lights she'd switched on. Just bright enough to see, not bright enough to show from outside. She opened the upper cabinet, took out 3 coffee mugs, placed them in the lower cabinet behind the mixing bowls. She moved the spice rack from the counter to the far end of the pantry behind the canned tomatoes. Then she walked to my nightstand. The hallway camera caught this, and moved my pillow organizer from the drawer to the bathroom cabinet across the hall. Then the kitchen again. She took my car keys from the hook by the front door, walked to the freezer, opened it, placed the keys behind the ice cream, closed the door, wiped the handle. 2:24 a.m. She left through the back door. The camera caught her tail lights disappearing down the street. Where did I put that moment I'd had in the past 2 years every time I'd stood in my own kitchen? Hand on the counter trying to remember which cabinet held the mugs. Every time I'd searched for my keys and found them in the wrong place. It wasn't me, it was her. At 2 o'clock in the morning in my kitchen, rearranging my life so I'd doubt my own mind. She moved my medication at 2 a.m. Then she called my doctor at 9 a.m. and said I couldn't find my pills. The camera's red light blinked in the corner of the frame. Steady, patient. Paige never looked up. She never once looked up. Frank's nightlight watching. The bank statements told the rest. The $18,000 Garrett signed off on, withdrawn from our joint emergency account and deposited into something called Hoffman Family Renovation Fund. 2 signatories, Paige Hoffman and Garrett Hoffman. My name was not on the account. Of the $18,000, $4,200 went to Home Depot and Sherwin-Williams. Paint rollers, a sectional sofa cabinet, hardware, the renovation supplies. The remaining $13,800 was withdrawn in cash across 3 months. 6 withdrawals, round numbers, no receipts. I found the trail anyway. Paige used my home Wi-Fi every time she visited. She also used the household desktop in the guest room, the one Garrett set up years ago for printing. She'd left herself logged into her Venmo account. 5 transfers to Diane Kessler over 3 months. $2,000, $1,500, $2,000, $1,500, $1,000. Total to Diane, $8,000. Each one tagged, "Thanks, Mom." In family court, we called this the pipeline. Step 1. Gain access to accounts under a legitimate pretext. Step 2. Create real expenses to justify the withdrawals. Step 3. Siphon the surplus. I had typed that progression into mediator reports 800 times. The dollar amounts changed. The method never did. I printed the bank statements, printed the Venmo transfer records, wrote the dates, amounts, and sources on index cards, stacked them chronologically. $18,000 extracted. $4,200 spent on dismantling my home. $8,000 paid to the woman coaching the dismantling. $5,800 unaccounted. I didn't feel angry. I felt clinical. The way I'd felt in my office building a file, organizing facts for a judge who would need them. The difference was that this judge would be me. 2 weeks before the locksmith came, Paige insisted on driving me to my annual checkup. "I'll take you, Renee. Save you the trouble." I could have driven myself. I've driven myself to every appointment for 46 years. But I said yes because I wanted to see what she'd do in front of Dr. Pham. She did exactly what I expected. In the exam room, Paige sat in the visitor chair and spoke before Dr. Pham finished his greeting. She leaned forward, hands folded, concerned brow rehearsed. "Doctor, I'm worried about her. She's been getting worse. She left the stove on twice last week." I did not leave the stove on. I had not used the stove in 8 days. My journal confirmed it. She put her car keys in the freezer again. She put my car keys in the freezer at 2 a.m. on camera. Then the line. The same one she'd used on Garrett, on Aunt Linda, on Cousin Marjorie. Paige looked at Dr. Pham and said it like a diagnosis she'd been rehearsing. "She doesn't even recognize her own kitchen anymore." Dr. Pham wrote notes. I watched his pen move. I could not read the words from my angle, but I knew what they said because I'd read 1,000 medical charts and guardianship hearings, and the language was always the same. I said nothing. In court, I learned never correct the liar in the room where they're building their case. Correct them in the room where the jury sits. After the appointment, I requested my medical records. 3 entries from Paige, all fabricated concerns, all dated, all building a file. If you've ever sat in a doctor's office while someone described a version of you that doesn't exist while they smiled and held your hand and lied to the person holding your chart, stay with me. Because what I found in my own house the next morning was worse than anything Paige told that doctor. Subscribe and stay. This is the part where the quiet woman stops watching. The next morning, I checked the overnight footage. The hallway camera, 11:42 p.m. Paige in my house. Through the back door using Garrett's spare key. She moved quickly down the hall into the guest bedroom, opened the closet, reached behind the winter coats, and pulled out a manila folder, thick-tabbed, held shut with a rubber band. She sat on the guest bed, opened the folder, added a new page. I could see her writing in the lamplight. Then she replaced the folder, closed the closet, and left. 11 minutes. She was in my house for 11 minutes while I slept 40 feet away. I went to that closet at 7 o'clock the next morning, found the folder behind the winter coats, exactly where she'd left it. It was heavy. 11 tabs, 43 pages, 6 years of work. Tab 1, Cognitive Concerns. A dated list of every incident where I appeared confused. The stove, the keys, the kitchen. 28 entries going back 4 years. All manufactured, all documented in my journal as fabricated. Tab 2, Medical. Copies of Dr. Pham's notes, including the ones from 2 weeks ago. I didn't know how she'd obtained them. I made a note to find out. Tab 3, Financial. Printouts of my bank accounts with highlighted transactions. The $18,000 withdrawal reframed as evidence of my poor judgment with money. My money, my account. Her narrative. Tab 4, Legal. A draft emergency guardianship petition. Petitioner Paige Hoffman. Proposed ward, Renee Hoffman. Attorney, James Falk Elder Law Associates, 412, Commerce Drive. Filed pending signature. I held that folder for a long time. She had built a case to take my life away. My house, my savings, my right to decide when to eat and where to sleep and whether to drive my own car. And she had stored it in my own closet. I photographed every page. Returned the folder, closed the closet. Then I called Patricia Crane. Patricia Crane was 74 years old and had spent 28 years on the family court bench. She was the best judge I ever worked with. Sharp, patient, impossible to fool. She retired 3 years before I did, and we'd kept in touch the way courthouse people do. Birthday cards, the occasional lunch, a phone call when something in the news reminded us of a case. Pat. I said I need your eyes on something. She came over that afternoon. I made coffee, set the laptop on the kitchen table, laid out the journal, the bank statements, the camera screenshots, and the folder. Paige's folder. The one with 11 tabs and 43 pages and a guardianship petition with my name on the ward line. Patricia took her time. She read every page of the journal, watched 16 minutes of footage, the painting, the key, hiding the medication, moving the 2 a.m. visits, reviewed the bank trail, read the petition draft twice. Then she set her coffee down and looked at me over her reading glasses. Renee, this is textbook. Isolation manufactured evidence, financial extraction, guardianship filing. I've seen this from the bench 40 times. 43, I said. I counted. She almost smiled. It was the closest thing to a compliment we gave each other. You need Martin Bosch, she said. Best elder law attorney in the state. If anyone knows how to dismantle this, it's Martin. Is the petition filed yet? It's a draft. No court stamp, no filing date. She hasn't submitted it, which means you have time. Patricia paused. But not much. The lock change was her next to last step. Filing is the last. I wrote down Martin Bosch's number on the back of a grocery receipt. Renee, Patricia said at the door, she built a case against you in your own closet. That's either confidence or stupidity. In my experience, I said, it's usually both. Martin Bosch had an office on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like old carpet and new ambition. He was 52, wire-rimmed glasses, rolled sleeves, the kind of lawyer who reads every page of every document and remembers the page number. I brought everything 2 boxes organized chronologically. He reviewed it in 2 hours. I sat across from him and drank water from a paper cup while he turned Paige's paused footage and made notes on a yellow legal pad with handwriting so small it looked like insect tracks. When he finished, he removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Mrs. Hoffman, you have enough here for a criminal complaint. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult fraud, unauthorized access to protected medical records. And if she files that guardianship petition using fabricated evidence perjury, how do you want to proceed? He leaned back. We don't file yet. We need her to make one more move. If she submits that petition, we file criminal charges the same day. The fabricated evidence becomes perjury on record. If she doesn't file, we present everything at a family setting with witnesses and serve the cease and desist in person. She's planning a family intervention, I said. Told Garrett last week. Saturday at my house. Martin's eyebrows went up. Just slightly. The lawyer version of excitement. That's our courtroom, he said. The strategy was clean. Let Paige make her case. Let her present the folder. Let her say the words in front of witnesses. Then play the footage. Then serve the papers. Saturday, Martin said. I'll park on your street at 10 o'clock. Text me when you're ready. I drove home. Set the boxes in my bedroom closet beside Paige's folder. 2 cases in one closet. Hers built to take my life apart. Mine built to keep it. Martin called me Thursday. I ran a background on Diane Kessler, your daughter-in-law's mother. I already knew Diane was involved. The cameras had her on tape, but Martin had found something else. 12 years ago, County Civil Records guardianship petition filed by Diane Kessler over Helen Kessler, Diane's mother-in-law. Helen was 78, mild cognitive decline, living alone in a 3-bedroom colonial, worth $190,000. The petition was granted. Diane became Helen's legal guardian. Within 8 months, the house was listed sold for $186,500. Helen was moved to a state-funded care facility. Diane pocketed the proceeds. Helen died in that facility 2 years later alone. The statute of limitations has expired, Martin said, but the pattern is documented and it's identical. Isolation medical narrative manufactured evidence of incompetence, guardianship filing asset seizure. I sat at my kitchen counter and let it settle. Paige didn't invent this scheme. She inherited it. Her mother handed it to her the way some mothers hand down recipes or jewelry step by step, tab by tab, year by year. The difference between Diane's scheme and Paige's Helen Kessler had real cognitive decline. She was vulnerable. The system failed her the way systems fail quiet people in quiet houses. I was not declining. My mind was not failing. My memory worked fine. So Paige had to build the decline from scratch. Hide the keys, move the pills, rearrange the kitchen, tell the doctor, tell the family, tell my son. The cameras caught the construction. 2 generations, mother and daughter. The same manila folder, the same patient-organized cruelty. Martin, I said, Saturday I want Diane in that room. She will be, he said. I'll make sure of it. Friday evening, Garrett called. Mom. His voice was tight, the voice of a man delivering a speech someone else wrote for him. Paige thinks we should all sit down and talk about your situation. My situation. She's invited Aunt Linda and Marjorie, her sister Brooke, and her mom Diane, Saturday at your place around 10 o'clock. Who else? Garrett's cousin Dave and his wife Lisa. 8 people in my living room to discuss my situation. Saturday is fine. I said, I'll make coffee. Mom, we're just worried about you. Who's worried, Garrett, you or Paige? Silence. The kind of silence that answers the question. We all are, Mom. Saturday, 10 o'clock. I'll have the house ready. I hung up, called Martin. Saturday, my house, 10 a.m. She's bringing 8 people. I'll be on your street at 9:30. Text me when it's time. Martin, she'll have the folder, the one with the guardianship petition. She's going to present it. Good. Letter. I spent Friday night and Saturday morning preparing, downloaded every relevant clip to a USB drive as backup, tested the laptop, screen clear, speakers loud enough for a room, organized the camera screenshots in chronological order, printed the bank records, printed the medical record entries, placed everything in a plain folder. No label, no tabs, just facts. And set it in my bedroom closet. 2 folders side by side. Pages on the left, mine on the right. Hers 11 tabs, 43 pages, 6 years of lies organized into a legal weapon. Mine 114 pages of truth organized the way I'd organized 7,000 case files. I set my alarm for 6 o'clock, went to bed, slept better than I'd slept in weeks. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. I woke before the alarm. I showered, dressed simply. Navy blouse, gray slacks, comfortable shoes. No jewelry except my wedding ring. The outfit of a woman going to work because that's what this was. I made breakfast, eggs, toast, 1 cup of coffee. Washed the plate, dried it, put it away. Routine. Frank used to say that the most dangerous person in a courtroom was the one who looked like they'd slept 8 hours. I walked through the house, touched the gray kitchen wall with the flat of my palm the way I'd done every morning since Paige painted over Frank's green. Underneath it, somewhere in the layers, his color was still there. Paint covers. It doesn't erase. The living room still looked like a furniture showroom. The white sectional Paige had installed the geometric prints on the walls where our family photos used to hang, the empty corner where Frank's reading chair had been for 20 years. By 9 o'clock, the laptop was charged and tested. I'd cued 4 clips in order, the painting, the 2 a.m. key, staging the medication move, and the rehearsal. Each one time-stamped, each one clear. Audio sharp. I set the laptop on the coffee table in the living room, screen down, lid closed, waiting. My folder was in the bedroom. Paige's folder was in the guest closet untouched. I'd left it exactly where she'd hidden it. At 9:15, I texted Martin, "On schedule." He replied, "Parked on Birch, ready when you are." I sat in the kitchen, poured a second cup of coffee, listened to the house breathe. Frank's chair was gone, but Frank's cameras were watching and Frank's wife was ready. At 9:30, a knock. Not at the doorbell, a knock. Soft, uncertain. Garrett. He stood on the porch in khakis and a button-down shirt he hadn't ironed. His tie was loose. He looked like he'd gotten dressed in the dark. "You're early," I said. "Paige is picking up Brooke and Diane. She'll be here at 10 o'clock. He came in, walked to the kitchen, sat at the counter, looked around the room, the way you look at a place you know has changed, but you can't say exactly how. "The house looks different, Mom." "Your wife redecorated. She was trying to help." I poured him coffee, set it in front of him, sat across the counter. "Mom, are you doing okay? Paige says you've been... What does Paige say?" He looked at his cup, turned it in his hands. "She says you're forgetting things, leaving the stove on, losing your keys." I looked at the hook by the front door. My car keys hung there. Same hook, same spot, 26 years. My keys are on that hook, Garrett. "Where they've been since your father screwed it into that wall." He followed my gaze, saw the keys. Something moved across his face, quick like a shadow passing over water. He saw them. He registered it. And then whatever Paige had built inside his head reassembled itself, and the shadow was gone. I almost told him. I had rehearsed the sentences. "Garrett, your wife, has been staging evidence of my cognitive decline for 6 years. She's been entering my house at 2 a.m. to move my belongings. She's building a guardianship case. The cameras have everything." I didn't say any of it. "Come tomorrow," I said. "Sit in that room and listen. Really listen." "I will, Mom." He didn't know what that meant yet. He would. Garrett left at 9:50. Paige would be here in 10 minutes. I stood in the kitchen. The house was quiet the way it's always quiet now, the kind of quiet that used to feel like peace and now feels like a held breath. The night before, I'd done one last thing. I'd opened the camera app and scrolled backward, not to Paige's clips further back, past the renovation, past the staging, past all of it, to Frank. The kitchen camera 2 months before he died. 6:14 a.m. Frank in his bathrobe making coffee. He filled the pot, checked the door locks, walked through the living room. Then he looked up at the camera in the corner and gave it a half smile. "Hey, nightlight," he said, quiet just to the camera. The way you'd talk to a dog that followed you into the kitchen. His voice clear, warm, gone. I'd watched that clip 3 times and then close the laptop. That was Friday night. Saturday morning, before the coffee, before the navy blouse, and the steady hands, I picked up the phone and called my sister. "Rita, I need you to know something. If anything goes wrong today, if Paige files anything, if something happens to me, there's a folder in my bedroom closet. Martin Bosch has copies of everything. His number is on the kitchen fridge." "Renee, what is going on?" "Justice." I said, "I hope." She wanted to keep talking. I told her I'd call after. I hung up. Through the front window, I saw a silver SUV turn onto my street. Paige's car. Paige driving Diane in the passenger seat, Brooke in the back. I set down my coffee, straightened my blouse, checked the laptop one final time. Charged, queued, ready. The doorbell rang. I answered it. At 8:30, Eddie Vasquez knocked. He stood on the porch in clean clothes holding a business card. "My personal number, Mrs. Hoffman, if you need anything today, anything at all. And if it helps, I can testify about who ordered that lock change." "Thank you, Eddie." He nodded once and left. Rosa Vasquez's grandson still paying forward a debt his grandmother never asked him to carry. Paige came in first. Navy dress, pearl earrings, low heels, professional put together. The outfit of a woman who'd planned this the way she planned everything down to the accessories. She carried a folder under her arm. The folder. I recognized the rubber band. "Morning, Renee." Smile warm but controlled. "Thank you for letting us do this. Letting us as if I had a choice. As if the locks weren't supposed to be changed. As if the kitchen wasn't supposed to be gray." Diane followed. Silver hair, beige cardigan, reading glasses around her neck. She nodded at me, said nothing. Sat in the back corner of the living room like a woman watching a play she'd already seen. Brooke, Paige's sister, 36, came in looking at her phone. She sat near the door. By 10:15, everyone was here. Aunt Linda, Cousin Marjorie, Dave, and Lisa Garrett, already seated at the counter, now moved to the living room at Paige's direction. 8 people. My chairs, my living room, the house Frank built. Paige had arranged the chairs in a semicircle facing one central seat. My seat. She'd set it up like a tribunal. I sat down. Paige stood at the front, folder in hand, concerned face in place. Thank you all for coming. I know this is hard, but we're here because we love Mom and we're concerned about her well-being. She called me Mom. First time in 6 years of marriage to my son, she'd always called me Renee. Now in front of witnesses, she called me Mom because it sounds better in a guardianship petition. If you've ever walked into your own home and felt like a guest, if someone rearranged your world and then called you confused for not recognizing it, you know what I was feeling. But here's what Paige didn't know. The laptop was in my bedroom, the attorney was parked on my street, and the cameras had been rolling for 4 years. Stay with me. Paige opened with a timeline. She'd prepared it typed, printed, bullet-pointed, the organizational skills of a general and the empathy of a spreadsheet. Over the past 3 years, we've noticed some changes in Mom's behavior. I want to walk through them. She read from the sheet. November 2023. Mom couldn't find her car keys, found them in the freezer. January 2024. Stove left on overnight. March 2024. Medication found in the wrong cabinet. Dr. Pham's office notified. I sat still, hands on my lap. I knew the real dates of each incident. I had them in my journal matched to camera timestamps. Paige moved through 2 years of manufactured confusion like a prosecutor building a case. Each incident dated, each one a lie. Around the room, Linda held her hands in her lap, lips tight. Marjorie looked at the floor. Dave leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Lisa had her arms crossed. Brooke scrolled her phone. Garrett stared at his hands. He hadn't looked up since Paige started. Diane sat in the back corner, still watching. She'd seen this presentation before. 12 years ago, different house. Different daughter-in-law, same folder, same pitch. Paige reached the medical section. Dr. Pham has documented 3 separate concerns. He recommended a cognitive assessment. She held up a printout of notes I hadn't authorized her to access. Then the renovation section. She gestured to the kitchen behind us. The gray walls, the reorganized cabinets. We updated the house to make it safer and more accessible, but Mom couldn't adjust. She couldn't find basic things. She looked at me, the smile, the tilt of the head. She doesn't even recognize her own kitchen anymore. 3rd time, same lines, same delivery in front of 8 witnesses. I let it land. Paige opened the final tab, the one I'd photographed 2 weeks ago in the guest bedroom closet legal. I've spoken with an elder law attorney. He's reviewed Mom's situation and his recommendation. Our recommendation is that we consider a supervised arrangement. She paused, let the word land. I'm willing to manage Mom's finances and medical decisions as her legal guardian. It's what's best for her safety. The room was quiet. The specific kind of quiet where nobody agrees, but nobody has the words to disagree. Linda's jaw tightened. Clear's throat. Marjorie pressed her lips together. Dave shifted in his seat. Garrett looked up for the first time. At me. His face was the face of a man drowning in something he doesn't have a name for. Diana adjusted her reading glasses. Uncrossed her legs, crossed them again. The picture of composed support. Paige turned to me. The concerned smile, the gentle tilt. Mom. Do you want to say anything? I looked at her. At the folder. At the room full of people she'd assembled to watch her take my house, my savings, and my right to live my own life. Yes, I said. I do. I stood up. The knees were fine, the hands were steady. 32 years of standing up in rooms where everything mattered had taught me how to stand. I walked to my bedroom, picked up the laptop, carried it back to the living room, set it on the coffee table facing the semicircle of chairs. Before I respond to anything, Paige just said, I'd like everyone to see something. Paige's smile flickered. Renee, we don't need. Sit down, Paige. She didn't expect that. Nobody told Paige to sit down. Nobody interrupted Paige's presentations. Nobody disrupted her spreadsheets or questioned her timelines. I've been told to sit down in conference rooms by angry fathers, hostile attorneys, and one judge who later apologized. I know what it feels like. I also know what it sounds like when the person saying it means every syllable. Paige sat down. I opened the laptop, turned the screen toward the room. The camera app was loaded, 4 clips, cued dates visible in the sidebar. My husband Frank was a police detective for 30 years. Before he died, he installed 6 security cameras in this house. Dome-style, cloud-backed recording 24 hours a day for the past 4 years. The room shifted. Linda straightened. Marjorie looked at the laptop. Dave uncrossed his arms. Paige's face changed. Not the concerned expression, not the gentle smile, something underneath. A calculation running a spreadsheet, recalculating the realization that a variable she hadn't accounted for had just entered the equation. Every room, I said, every hour, audio and video time-stamped. 4 years of footage stored on a cloud server that Paige didn't know existed because she assumed the cameras stopped working when my husband died. I looked at Paige. She was looking at the laptop the way a person looks at a locked door they just realized they can't get through. "I've been watching Paige." Silence. 8 people breathing. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. "Everything you did in this house after midnight, every time you moved a coffee mug, every time you hid my keys. Every time you walked through my hallway while I slept, I've been watching all of it." Diane uncrossed her legs, then crossed them again. The first sign of movement from the back corner. I pressed play. The first clip. Kitchen camera, November 14th, 2:17 a.m. Paige in my kitchen, moving coffee mugs from the upper cabinet to the lower cabinet, moving the spice rack to the back of the pantry, methodical, quiet, the under cabinet light on her face. Then the keys. The same camera. Paige walking to the front door, taking my car keys from the hook, walking to the freezer, placing them behind the ice cream, closing the door, wiping the handle. Aunt Linda's hand went to her mouth. Marjorie stood up, then sat back down. Second clip. Kitchen camera renovation, week 9:22 a.m. Paige and Diane. Diane rolling gray paint over the sage green wall and the audio clear microphone crisp. "Did you call the guardianship attorney yet?" "After the locks, one step at a time," Dave said. "Jesus!" Lisa covered her mouth. Garrett was staring at the screen. His lips were parted. His hands were flat on his knees. I let the clips play. I didn't narrate. I didn't explain. The footage explained itself. Then I paused it. "I spent 32 years watching people like you walk into my courtroom," I said. "You always think the old woman doesn't see it coming." Paige was standing now. When she'd stood up, I don't know. Her face was white. The pearls looked wrong on her now. Too polished. Too rehearsed like costume jewelry on a stage. That footage is... you can't... That's an invasion of... It's my house, my cameras, my evidence. Garrett looked up. Past me. Past Paige. At the wall. I followed his gaze. The dome camera in the corner of the living room. The tiny red light. Blinking. One pulse every 3 seconds. He stared at it like he was seeing it for the first time. He was. I pressed play again. Third clip. Kitchen camera. 9 days before the intervention, 10:11 p.m. Paige standing at the kitchen sink. Alone. The window dark. She was talking to herself. No, not talking. Rehearsing. "We love Mom, but she needs help." She adjusted her expression in the reflection, tried a different hand gesture, open palms, then clasped fingers, tilted her head, tried the concerned brow. "We're not doing this to hurt her. We're doing this because we care." She practiced the line 4 times, different inflections, different pauses, watching herself at the dark glass of the kitchen window. The room watched Paige watch herself rehearse the exact speech she'd delivered 40 minutes ago. Every word, every gesture, every pause choreographed in a kitchen mirror at 10 o'clock at night. Linda was crying silently, hands in her lap. I turned to Paige. "I wanted to see how far you'd go, Paige. Now I know." She was shaking. Not from cold. From the particular kind of tremor that happens when a person who has controlled every variable for 6 years realizes they missed one. This is entrapment. You set me up. I didn't move your furniture at 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't hide your medication. I didn't paint over your husband's kitchen wall. You did all of that yourself. I just kept the cameras running. My voice was level. My hands were still. 32 years of family court. You learn to be the calmest person in the worst room. I picked up my phone, typed one word, sent it. Now, 2 minutes, the doorbell rang. Martin Bosch. Gray suit, white shirt, briefcase in his left hand, business card holder in his right. He stepped through the front door like a man who'd walked into 1,000 difficult rooms and knew exactly where to stand. I'm Martin Bosch, elder law attorney. I represent Mrs. Renee Hoffman. He set his briefcase on the coffee table next to the laptop, opened it, removed 3 sets of documents, each clipped and tabbed. This is a cease and desist letter addressed to Paige Hoffman and Diane Kessler, ordering the immediate cessation of all activities related to the fraudulent guardianship petition, unauthorized access to Mrs. Hoffman's medical records, and financial exploitation of her accounts. He set it on the table. This is notification that an elder abuse investigation has been opened with Adult Protective Services based on evidence documented over a 4-year period. Second document on the table, and this is a copy of the criminal complaint filed this morning. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraud, and unauthorized access to protected medical records. Third document. Martin looked at Paige. Not unkindly, but with the professional distance of a man delivering facts. Any guardianship petition filed using fabricated evidence constitutes perjury under state law. The footage Mrs. Hoffman has collected, combined with her contemporaneous journal and financial records, constitutes evidence of a multi-year fraud scheme. Paige, I want a lawyer. Martin, you'll need one. Diane stood. She rose from the back corner the way a director steps onto a stage, calm measured as if the performance were still recoverable. This is ridiculous. We were trying to help. Renee has been struggling for years. Anyone can see Helen Kessler, I said. Diane stopped. Your mother-in-law. 12 years ago. County civil records show guardianship petition filed by Diane Kessler, granted within 60 days. Helen's house, 3 bedrooms, colonial, valued at $190,000, sold within 8 months. Helen moved to a state-funded care facility. I paused, not for effect, for accuracy. Helen died in that facility 2 years later. The proceeds went to you. The room was watching Diane now, not Paige. Diane! That was different, Diane said. Her voice had changed, thinner. Helen was actually declining. She was sick. She was declining. I pulled the records. You didn't fabricate her symptoms. You just took advantage of them. I let that sit. The difference is, I'm not declining. My mind is clear. So your daughter had to manufacture the decline, and she learned how from you. Diane's face cracked. Not dramatically a hairline fracture. The kind you only see if you've spent 32 years reading faces across a mediation table. My mother died in a state home, Diane said quiet. No house, no savings, no one. I swore that wouldn't happen to me. So you made it happen to someone else, I said. Twice. Diane sat down. Brooke was already standing, pulling on her coat, moving toward the door. She left without a word. The door clicked shut behind her. Garrett hadn't moved since the first clip played. His hands were still flat on his knees. His eyes were fixed on a point somewhere between the laptop screen and the wall. He looked at Paige, at Diane, at me, then up at the dome camera in the corner. The tiny red light, Frank's nightlight, blinking in the silence. Is any of this real? His voice broke on the last word. Anything you told me about Mom, was any of it real? Paige had gathered herself. The shaking had stopped. The calculation was back. Garrett, your mother is manipulating you. She set up cameras to stop. First time Garrett had raised his voice in this room. First time he'd raised his voice in years, maybe. It came out raw. Just stop. He turned to me. His eyes were wet. He looked like Frank. The exact same way Frank looked when he was trying to hold something together that was already falling. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't see it. You weren't supposed to see it, Garrett. That was the whole point. He pressed his palms against his eyes. Breathed. Paige picked up her folder, the one with 11 tabs, 43 pages, 6 years. We need to go, she said. Now. Garrett didn't move. You go, he said, hands still on his knees, not looking at her. I'm staying with my mother. Paige stared at him, at me, at the room full of people who were no longer looking at her the way she'd planned. She walked to the front door. Diane followed. The door closed. The house was quiet. Linda stayed long enough to hold me and say through tears, I believed her, Renee, every word. She called me twice a month. They all said some version of the same thing on their way out. Linda, Marjorie, Dave, Lisa, each one pausing at the door. I should have asked you. Then it was Garrett and me. He sat at the kitchen counter, the gray wall behind him, head in his hands, shoulders moving the way Frank's shoulders used to move up, and in no sound, just pressure. 4 years, Mom. She was doing this for 4 years while I was in the same house. She was very good at it, Garrett. She learned from an expert. The 18,000 Martin will handle it. He cried quietly. I put my hand on his back and let him sit with it. I didn't say it would be okay. I didn't say I forgave him. I just let him be there in the kitchen his father built in the chair Paige hadn't replaced, and I kept my hand steady. Can I stay tonight? Garrett said. On the couch. The couch is new. It's white. Your wife picked it. I hate it. He almost laughed first time in months. A short sound, half air, half relief. I'll sleep on it anyway. Garrett. I waited until he looked at me. I love you. I have always loved you. But if you ever let anyone manage my life again without asking me first, you'll lose me. Not because I'll stop loving you, because I'll stop answering the door. He nodded. He understood, or he was starting to. I made coffee, 2 cups set, one in front of him sat across the counter. Your father used to say the best security system is a woman who pays attention. He was right. He usually was. We sat in the kitchen for a long time. The investigation was open. The petition was dead. The locks were still mine. 2 months later, Paige filed for divorce, not Garrett Paige. Irreconcilable differences, the paper said. Translation, she couldn't control him anymore, and the investigation made staying a liability. Diane received a separate cease and desist. Helen Kessler's case was reopened for review. No criminal charges, but the record was corrected. Martin traced how Paige obtained my medical records. She'd listed herself as Garrett's emergency contact at Dr. Pham's office, then used that access to request my chart on behalf of the family. The office flagged it after our complaint. The $13,800 came back. Martin negotiated a settlement, returned the siphoned funds, or face a civil suit on top of the criminal complaint. Paige paid. Garrett moved into the ranch house. Temporarily, he said. He fixed the porch railing Frank had never finished, replaced the bathroom faucet that had dripped for 3 years. He was working on things the house himself. The distance he'd let grow between us. I repainted the kitchen wall sage green. Took me 3 tries to match Frank's shade. Close enough. Nothing is ever exact, but close enough is good enough when you've earned it. Aunt Linda calls every Wednesday now. Marjorie sends cookies. Eddie Vasquez changed the locks. Proper deadbolts, 2 sets of keys. One for me, one for Garrett. The generic art is gone. Family photos are back. Frank's reading chair. Garrett found it in the garage where Paige had stored it. He reupholstered it, put it back where it belonged. I sit in Frank's chair most evenings. The cameras are still on. The red lights still blink. 1 pulse every 3 seconds. 6 dots scattered through the rooms. Not because I'm afraid, because they're the last thing Frank gave me. And I'm not turning them off. Some people think patience is passivity. It isn't. Patience is watching counting and choosing the exact right moment to show them what you've always known. That's my story. 6 years of watching one laptop and a woman who knew the pattern before it started. If this reminded you to check your own locks, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.